What's up everyone, and welcome back to Nexus. In a country like America, plane tickets are often an essential thing that you might need if you ever move to a state far away from your family. You get the kind of job that requires constant travel, or maybe even if you find yourself in a long-distance relationship. But often, the entire process of catching a flight on a plane can be an exhaustive hassle, full of fluctuating prices, bag checks, and weight restrictions. But if you want to make the journey a little easier, watch this video to find out 10 secrets airlines don't want you to know. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get new content similar to this every day. Also, make sure to comment down below letting us know which was your favorite. And for this video, let's see if we can hit the golden like button, which is 1,000 likes, so make sure to drop a like down below. Number 10. Just before you get too excited and book yourself a ton of plane tickets to God only knows where, a little warning that this first secret does have conditions you have to meet to be eligible. And the main condition is that you book with American Airlines. This secret is you can cancel your ticket within 24 hours of purchasing it with no extra charge, which is good when ticket prices change so much depending on the time of day of the week, and which way the wind is blowing, and any other ridiculous criteria. Or even if your plans suddenly fall through very quickly. If you bought with American Airlines, then you don't have to worry about it. Number 9. We've all heard horror stories that if you don't switch your phone off or swap to airplane mode when you're flying, you could cause the whole plane to crash. Lots of people disobey this rule, just like lots of people sit around on their phones in movie theaters with no care for those around them. But just how much truth is there behind this idea? Well, ultimately, not much. There's actually never been a case where somebody has been using a cell phone and it's made the plane go kaput and crash down. However, the Federal Aviation Administration do warn that interference from these kinds of devices, which includes laptops and phones, can affect the complicated aircraft systems, since a lot of what planes do these days is automatic. In the end, it comes down to the airline to decide what you can and can't use. But it's always best to keep your phones on airplane mode and stay on the safe side.
Can't turn off my pacemaker.
Well, your pacemaker is fine.
It just opens up a whole new can of worms.
Airplanes are magic! Okay. No one knows why you have to turn off your phones, and you want to know why? Because no one knows how an airplane works!
Number 8. The people who use airlines more regularly than anyone else are generally businessmen and women on their way to important meetings and conferences around the country, and even sometimes around the world. But the least common days for these people's travels are Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays, leading to people believing that these are the cheapest days to buy their tickets. In fact, they're not. Not unless you're in the airport and you're literally flying that day, in which case you can take full advantage of the cheaper price tag on the surplus plane seats, but also the risk that you might not be able to get one. When you're booking a ticket to go somewhere a few weeks in advance, it's very unlikely that the specific day you book will affect your prices. Number 7. Now, this secret requires you kicking up a bit of fuss in the airport and after you leave it, but it could potentially be very worth the extra hassle. Basically, airlines owe you much more money than they'll offer you for your luggage if they lose it, or even if it's just delayed. While maybe before you might have received a cool $50 for your wasted time, but you can actually claim back a few $1,000s sometimes in liabilities, if you can prove with your receipts that you legitimately needed those items, so you need to be stubborn and a good record keeper to pull this one off. But what's the big deal about saving your receipts, if it means one day you could win $3,300 from an airline after they lose your skis while flying you out to a wintry mountain retreat for your long weekend? Number 6. Did you know that if your flight gets delayed and you end up having to fly with a different airline or get totally alternative transport somewhere, if you get your original airline to arrange the alternate journey, they have to pay for all the fees and expenses? Okay, yeah, it's a little hard to wrangle this one, since you can't exactly choose if and when your flight gets delayed. And it's probably way easier for it to go on time in the first place and save you all this bother. But it can be a way for people without a lot of money to experience the luxurious of all-inclusive first class. That's because if the only seat available on another flight is a first class seat, it's yours, and the airline has to pay for it for you. I guess you could get a bit of a bum deal out of this though, like if you already had a first class ticket and you get downgraded, or worse if you end up having to go on a coach journey across the country instead of flying at all. Number 5. There are some people in the world, and let's be honest, you've probably met a few of them, who absolutely hate flying. They have the biggest fear of flying in the world, even though flying is statistically much safer than driving a car or the health risk of drinking alcohol and smoking on the regular. If you do manage to get one of these people on a plane, chances are they'll be super anxious the entire time, just waiting for the plane to crash and burn. At the very least, they'll be asking tons of questions, and one of those could be, what are those tiny holes at the bottom of a window? Will all the air get sucked out? Well, if you too have been wondering what the holes in the windows are, allow me to tell you. They're actually called bleed holes. Not the most comforting name, but they're there to help balance the pressure between the outside and the inside of the plane. So, don't worry, you won't be sucked out of these little holes. Number 4. We already told you about what might happen if your flight gets delayed and you need to get a different one. The airline can pay, and in the same vein, they can actually owe you money. This is if you're severely inconvenienced by what happens. For example, if your route and connections constantly keep changing, or if your flight is just canceled altogether. In this way, you can make your non-refundable ticket completely refundable, because if what happened is the airline's fault, they have to compensate you for it legally. All you need to do for this is be a bit of a bother to the people in charge, and they'll right their mistakes. But hey, be nice about it, because the chances are it wasn't the direct fault of the people you're dealing with. Number 3. Snakes on a Plane was a weird, ridiculous, but iconic movie, and it raised some questions about what exactly happens to animals when you have to fly them out somewhere and they get shoved down in the hold of an airplane. Unfortunately, this secret is not that there's a special pet hotel hidden down there with all the biscuits and snacks they can eat, because lots of animals are actually dying on flights on US airlines. This is due to extreme conditions in the hold, mainly the temperature deficits, that can mean your beloved pets literally freeze to death, while you're up there complaining about the state of your prepaid in-flight microwave meal. Lots of companies recommend not sending your pets as baggage at all if it can be avoided, and even United Airlines, which has a pet-safe program to try and mitigate these risks, reports just under 30 pet deaths each year. Number 2. Under the rules of the FAA, pilots are not allowed to be in the air and flying more than 8 hours out of every 24-hour period, because after that point it can become unsafe for the crew and passengers alike. But along with that, the FAA do not count towards those 8 hours any time spent hanging around in airports waiting for layovers, ground delays, pre-flight checks, or any of that stuff. This means that your pilot could be a lot more tired than you would like them to be, after having to wait for all that to happen before he can take a seat in the cockpit. The 8 mandatory hours of rest for pilots might not even be sleeping. Instead, it could be even more transport, driving around between airports and home, or eating and napping. Honorable mention. What was it I mentioned earlier about people with fears of flying going on planes? Well, here's something you most definitely should not tell them. On average, every single commercial airplane is estimated to be struck by lightning at least once a year. While this is almost non-threatening and not a big deal for the planes, it's still pretty scary to think about. Number 1. In the Tokyo Convention of 1963, the kind of authority plane captains and flight crews have over their passengers was decided, which provides the answer to any questions about how much authority they really have to do to things like detain and arrest people. Well, ultimately, they have a lot of authority, because they have to. It's not like they can call the police while they're flying a couple thousand feet above the ocean. The full clause goes that the captain may restrain any persons he has reasonable cause to believe is committing or is about to commit an offense liable to interfere with the safety of persons or property on board of who is jeopardizing good order and discipline. Wow, that was a mouthful. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss a video in the future, and hit the like button too so we can hit the golden like of 1,000. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace!